So I don't open the door. I back up to the front of my squad car, let him get out, and he's going for his wallet, and I can't see his right hand. Only thing I can't see, and all I do is slightly lean to the left. And when I do that, I see he's got a butcher knife in his right hand. And I'm like, okay. And I'm sure my eyes got the size of silver dollars, and he runs at me. I trip, hit the curb, land out on the roadway, Route 38. Everything at that point had been super slow motion. Now it's light speed. And in my mind, because my back is to him, I'm screaming, get up, get up, get up, get up. This guy's going to be on top of you.
Dan, thank you for agreeing to be here today. By way of an introduction, I wanted to provide a brief overview of your law enforcement career. Your law enforcement career began in 1996 as a corrections officer with the Champaign County, Illinois Sheriff's Office. In December of 1998, you were hired as a patrol officer with the Geneva, Illinois Police Department. During your time with the Geneva Police Department, you served as a field training officer and held numerous roles as an instructor, including CQB instructor, rapid deployment instructor, less lethal instructor, self-aid buddy aid instructor, high-risk traffic stop instructor, and master firearms instructor. In addition to your duties as a patrol officer, you served as a sniper team leader with the Kane County SWAT team, as well as the sniper team leader with the Illinois Region 4 North Weapons of Mass Destruction SWAT team. You are a peer support officer and continue to serve as a member of the Northern Illinois Critical Incident Stress Management Debriefing Team. You retired from the Geneva Police Department in September of 2025. Dan, thank you for agreeing to share your story.
Thank you, sir.
So what attracted you to law enforcement, and why did you choose the Geneva Police Department?
So I grew up as an Air Force brat and lived in 5 different states between birth and basically 8th grade. So I was kind of enmeshed in the military environment and everything like that. But through that time, I had a best friend that lived in Rantoul, because we bounced back and forth from Rantoul, Illinois to different Air Force bases because my parents owned a home there. His dad was a Champaign County deputy, one of the best mentors I ever had. And when my dad retired in 1988, we moved back to Rantoul, and of course I still had some old friends there, and Archie McAllister was the deputy. Mark, who was a little bit younger than me, who's still a deputy with Champaign County, Archie would pull his squad car into the garage, and he would let us play cops and robbers with his squad car. So I was always very, very interested in law enforcement. My dad always kind of wanted me to go into the military because he thought I would be a good Army guy, even though he was Air Force. He's like, you always would have been a good soldier. And sadly, 10 days after I eventually got sworn in as a deputy in the Corrections Division, my father died from cancer. Archie always filled that void. He was always a mentor, always a father to me. And Archie honestly created a legacy because me, 2 of his sons, and his nephew all became deputies, and for a very short period of time, we all got to serve together. So it was very, very cool, very, very cool. I'm very grateful for that. So
you start out in corrections.
Yes, sir.
With the Champaign County Sheriff's Office. Now, was that part of a plan? Start there, move on? Had you?
No, not
Okay.
at all.
All right.
I didn't want anything to do with corrections. But I tested for both. I was on the list for both. And at that time, Sheriff Madigan, who was a family friend, they were in the process of building an additional jail and needed a bunch of new officers to staff that. And when the packet came in the mail to do the background, I was super excited, opened it up, and it was corrections. And my dad, he was excited for me, he was still alive, actually got really mad at me because I was disappointed that it was corrections and not the road division. And my dad was always military, even though he was retired, and he's like, you're gonna take that job, Sheriff Madigan's a good man. He's selecting you to do this. You don't say no. And he was exactly right. He was exactly right.
So before we move out of that corrections role that you held, was there an academy for that?
There was. I describe it as passing the 8th grade again. It's very easy. I had to go down to Belleville, Illinois, 1 week at a time for 5 weeks, get to come home on the weekends, and it was through the St. Clair County Sheriff's Department. And there were correctional officers from all over the state. They just had an accredited academy, and it was, you basically had to learn the Court Systems Act and everything like that, and it was very, very, very easy. You still had to do the 40-hour firearms qualification and everything like that, but no, it was really easy. I took second in firearms, I took second in academics, and got beat by the same girl in both.
That's funny.
So that may have been a blow to my ego.
So what was that time like working in corrections for you?
It was good because I have lasting friendships from it. My biggest takeaway from corrections is you learn to communicate very quickly with people that are under the influence, people that are mentally ill. And even though I was kind of a golden child because I was politically in with the sheriff, I got a little more latitude in assignments in the jail, and eventually, as a 22-year-old, as crazy as this is, they made me an OIC on midnight shift, and I would be in charge of 2 jails and 15 correctional officers.
Wow.
And some of those are 20-year veterans. They never had a problem with it. But corrections is a rough road to go down. My hat goes off to anybody that can do it to the point that they can retire, because in my little over 2 years there, I was in more fights in that time than I ever was out on the street, because everybody's fighting. And the stories go on and on and on. The amount of crazy people coming through the door, and Champaign County was central booking at that time. And on midnight shift, it wouldn't be unheard of that you have 15 squad cars lined up bringing people into jail, but they'd bring people into jail for a suspended license arrest. So, but that was different times back then. But you got to know the prisoners too. They'd be like, "Hey, Yates," I'm like, "What are you here for this time?" There were a lot of really good people in jail, and you had to focus on that they just simply made a mistake. But there was a lot of really bad people in jail, some really dangerous people in jail. And that just made me a better officer once I got to the street.
So Geneva is not reasonably close to Champaign County. So how do you end up in Geneva?
I was very selfish. I lacked humility. I was very naive. There was miscommunication and misunderstanding on my part about going to the road division, because I was on both lists. I was told that the list that I was on for the road division was still good, and then I wouldn't need to test again. And then a couple colleagues that I went to the academy with had recently taken the test for the road, and I was told they were combining them. They didn't, so I was no longer on the list. To put it very bluntly, I got pissed because I did not want to be in corrections. I was a kid though. They gave me a badge and gun at 21, and they were crazy for doing that. So I was on a Department of Corrections transport with the Department of Corrections agent. It's a very long day. You start off 4 o'clock in the morning. You got to go all over Cook County, wherever, pick up Champaign County prisoners, drop off, everything like that. And the whole time we were going through our trip, we were going to finish going out to the St. Charles Juvenile Prison to drop off a kid, and he was just raving about this town of Geneva. I'll tell you right now, Geneva was the city to me. I was a country boy at this point. I did not like the traffic. But it was a really unique looking city. I didn't know anything about it, not one thing about it other than Route 47 connected to Route 38, and that's how I get to Geneva. So this is when email first kind of started up. So we're talking like 1997. I sent a letter to Chief Kidwell, who was the chief of police, about, I was interested in the town. I was not interested in the town. I was only going to use it to get what I wanted back home. That's the selfish part. And he sent a letter back. He's like, come up, get the application, take the test. And I took the test. Didn't tell anybody. Got off work at midnight. Drove up to the BP in Elburn, Illinois, where 47 and 38 connected. And I slept behind the gas station that night, checking my clock every hour to make sure that I wouldn't miss the test. Showed up, dead dog tired, super cold out. It was like a November day or something like that. Passed everything. Finally ended up third on the list. Number one, when I retired, he was my DC. We used to always joke about that. And looking back on all of it now, because I wasn't going to stay. In fact, I tested, because Champaign County wasn't tested, I tested with Champaign Police Department, Urbana Police Department during that time while I was up here in the very beginning. PD caught word of it, didn't hold it against me, and I got number 1 on Urbana's and 7 on Champagne's, and got conditional job offers for both. And a friend of mine in Chicagoland knew I was struggling up here, made me come to the city with her one day. She showed me around all day long, and they always call me Danny back home. Danny, you can't go back home. There's nothing for us there. It's just our friends and family. You got to stay up here. This is where all the opportunity is. Geneva's a super nice community. You got to stay here. So I'm like, you're right. So I withdrew my name, and she ended up having to go back home because she started to get herself into trouble. Couldn't find her. Called my best friend. I'm like, where is Heather? And he started laughing. He's like, dude, she started to get into drugs and stuff. She had to come back home. And I'm like, what? I stayed up here because she talked me into it. And now looking back with all of my best friends, some of them are still working, some of them are retired. They're like, that is the best decision you ever made, and you didn't know it at the time, because I did not like it up here at all. This was a city to me. I was afraid to go east of Route 59. That's how crazy it was for me. And I was in a rinky-dink apartment, gave up my home in Rantoul with my roommates were my best friends, and knew nobody. And it worked out.
So you end up having to go to another academy, right? The Corrections Academy has nothing to do
Correct.
with Geneva. So where do you go to the academy, and what's that like?
So at that time, the Geneva Police Department primarily utilized PTI, the Police Training Institute. So I basically resign in December of '98, and then go to the academy January 4th, which is my birthday, in a snowstorm. And I knew PTI very well. I had done some things with PTI over the years because I used to be a Champaign County explorer. So I was very familiar with it, and I was familiar with a lot of the instructors. I used to do intakes of prisoners for them. So to me, it was just another step. To the rest of the academy, it was party time for them. And so on the weekends, I still had my home in Rantoul, even though I'd got my apartment up in Warrenville, Illinois. I would sleep on the living room floor in an empty house in Rantoul and just hang out with my friends while I was going through the academy before I absolutely had to move up north. So PTI was good. I knew a lot of the instructors. It wasn't hard at all. I did well with it. I probably didn't take it as seriously as I should have, just because of comfortability. But I did great. I was near the top of the class, and that was that. So I was a PTI baby, but I was always a PTI baby.
So you graduate the academy, and you show up at Geneva PD for training. Do you remember what your first day is like?
I do. I suffer from the cops curse, so my wife doesn't like it, but I show up early to everything. And so I show up an hour early for work, and I'm down in the break room all dressed out, and they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I don't know, just early and everything like that. But the culture the culture of Geneva Police Department was like vastly, vastly, vastly different than anything I had ever experienced. And, you know, in the academy, some of the Elgin guys I was with and who I became good friends with were like, yeah, you're going to be serving tickets on a silver platter. And I'm like, what? You know, I had no idea. I had no idea. And to me, it was like being in a gerbil wheel because it was so small. I mean, it's only like 10 square miles. And so, yeah, I go into roll call and meet up with my FTO and then start the FTO process. But it was very, very different. The uniforms had to be exactly the same. You know, I mean, they checked all of that. Everybody looked the exact same. And I'm like, I am not used to this. What is this? So it was different.
What was that department like when you started? How big was it? You talked a little bit about the culture.
At that time, based on ordinance, it was 36 sworn. It's now 38 sworn. And they had your normal divisions. You know, patrol officers were evidence technicians. They had a detectives division, which was small. And then the rest was pretty much all patrol and command with sergeants and above. So it was very kind of mundane in terms of opportunities. But I didn't care because I wasn't staying, right? I was just there to get my time in, and then I was like, see ya. So I was just gonna do the work and get out of there. So it was, you know, I didn't, walking in there, I had no desires to do anything else. Like, just gonna do my job, and then I'm getting the hell out of Dodge and I'm going home.
So when you're talking about, you're gonna be serving tickets on a silver platter, what's that about?
So for lack of a better description, where I was from at that time, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I'll just say what they say. You don't touch the police, you don't fuck the police, you don't motherfuck the police, or you're going to jail. Mm-hmm. That was not the Geneva way. And then I learned very quickly that Geneva is very, very, very affluent. So they had very high expectations. And so I'm going to a doctor's house. I have braces on. I'm 23 years old, 24 years old, because I had some surgery done on my jaw. And I'm supposed to be in charge. And they're looking at me like I'm some kid, which I'm the police, right? That's not the attitude. We're there to serve them and assist them and everything like that. And so it was there were times that we would be doing stuff and I'd be like, why are we doing that? I didn't get hired to be a crossing guard, right? But that's what the community needed. And I grew into that. And that became a part of my FTO stuff too. You know, saying, we get paid a lot of money to do silly things, so do them well, right? All right. And so it was just very, very, very different. And, you know, and it's not that different across the board in the far western suburbs. I mean, they're very community oriented, you know, no place is perfect, but it was just different.
About how many miles is Geneva from Chicago?
So Randall Road, based on county numbering system, is 37 west. It's my understanding that is 37 miles from Michigan Avenue. So from the eastern edge of Geneva, which borders West Chicago, I would say that it's about 30 miles, 28 miles to the edge of the city, which isn't that far, but you know, with traffic.
So did you see over the course of your career the culture at Geneva change from the day you were hired to the day you left, or did it pretty much stay the same?
1,000%. 1,000%. And that's not necessarily due to leadership. That's due to generational differences. You know, when I first started, and probably when you first started too, a lot of our sergeants on up, they were Vietnam vets. And that was what I was influenced by when I first started. They were rough and tough dudes, right? And so you were seeing a much more educated class of officers coming in with a lot less life experience. And so that was kind of hard to watch that happen over the years. And, you know, when I would talk about how, you know, you could only have this one pair of boots, you had to wear this belt, and this is where everything went on your belt. Now I'll tell you that defeats body mechanics in a lot of ways, but that's just the way it was. And they would look at you like you had a third eye, right? And they would add equipment to their vests and everything like that. And those are just the differences. I would say that the quality of policing didn't go down because the expectations remained and the service you provide, but there was a lot more latitude in, you know, equipment and things like that. And, you know, and then going through the attrition of COVID, positions had to be filled, and then they're being filled by people that aren't ready to fill those positions. And I had a hard time with that, you know, because I took a lot of, you know, pride in the fact that, you know, I have a pretty idea who would be good at what, especially when it came to training other officers and being an FTO for well over 20 years and everything like that. And finally, they told me, listen, the needs outweigh the qualifications. They just have to grow into it, which I had a really hard time dealing with, because I'm sitting next to kids with 3 years on, they're an FTO, and I'm a 20-year FTO, and they don't know anything. Doesn't mean they're not a good cop, but they don't know enough to be able to teach and hold someone's career in the palm of their hand. You know, and they turn into check the boxes FTOs. And that's just kind of where we went to. I think it'll come back, you know, now that staffing's up to where it needs to be for departments. They can take their foot off the accelerator a little bit and do a little coasting and let people grow, but I struggled with that immensely.
So what was field training like for you when you first come on the job?
50% of it was hell. The other 50% was really good. I had 2 FTOs to start with, and I later learned that they were quote unquote climbers. Everybody in the cop world knows what that means. And it was partly my fault because, again, I came there with almost 2.5 years at Champaign County. I had a lot of success. They offered me a lot of things to stay. So I had a level of arrogance to me. I knew how to talk on the radio, understood the tongue code. I knew a lot more than just someone coming out of the academy. That was discounted, obviously, because you need to show that you know those things. Don't tell people you know them, which I understand now. Now that I'm a grown man, for the most part. But what I think my FTOs failed to understand, which I learned as an FTO to take the time to get to know your recruit, you want to know their background, is that if I failed at Geneva, I was homeless. My mother was in St. Louis. She had sold the home in Rantoul. I was fatherless. My brother had his own family. At that time wasn't doing very well financially and having all kinds of struggles. And I wasn't the type of person to call up my friends and be like, hey, I failed here, can I come and live with you? So I put a lot of pressure on myself to be successful and to be viewed as being successful. And that was counted against me. And it was misperceived, but it was partly my fault too. Because again, I was lacking humility. Without a doubt, I was not humble. I was arrogant because I'd had a ton of success. But then I had to learn that you show people you're successful by doing and then not talking about it. Just go do the job.
Any good field training stories?
In terms of being in training or as an FTO?
In terms of being in training. We'll start there and then we can roll into you being an FTO.
Yeah, so I mean, I did fine in FTO. You know, I can tell you 2 bad stories. I had 4 FTOs total. The second 2 were great. They basically supported me and said they're not seeing what the other FTOs are saying. But one of the strengths I had was searching people. Like, I would do that all day long in corrections. And we had a call up on the north side of town. Sergeant found 2 guys hiding in an SUV. There was an underage drinking party. something like that in the area. And so we get there, and they don't belong with that SUV. So it's decided that we're going to search them. And I find dope right away. And I'm doing the searching with Sergeant and the whole shift, everybody watching me and everything like that. A ton of officer safety issues, but that's neither here nor there. And I find the dope. Well, that's when we cared about dime bags.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't care about
Yeah.
that. Throw it in the ground,
Yeah.
stomp it, get out of here,
Yeah.
right? Because that's where we're at in Illinois now. So I was like, yeah, they saw me find this. It was hidden on them. It was down in their socks and everything like that, and make that, you know, dime bag arrest and whatever. And so then my FTO asked me about it, my opinion. And I said, I think it's great. You know, hopefully it builds confidence with my fellow officers. I'm glad that I found it. You know, it's a strength of mine, everything like that. And then DOR's daily observation report stopped for a week. I didn't get anything, just radio silence. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then transition to the next FTO. And as we're driving out of the parking lot to start our shift, that's the first question. Hey, I heard you had a really good arrest the other night, good search. Why don't you tell me about that? And I'm like, okay, here we go. And so said the same things. And then I got the DORs, officer agent's only out to look good, not a team player, everything like that. And I'm like, here we go. I weathered it. I got through it, proved those two wrong, which then became really good friends of mine later on as we all got older. But then another bad FTO experience, and then I want to follow up with something. But so I'm with that second FTO, and for whatever reason, probably because I was on midnight shift, I didn't have to handle any accident reports, okay, which we handle a ton of those. Mm-hmm. They certainly do in Oak Brook, right? It's a daily thing, hourly thing sometimes. And so I get dispatched to one of our factories, and two semis just bumped into each other. And of course, the companies want reports and everything like that. I get there, no problem, and I look over my FTO, and I'm like, hey, how do I handle this? One, I haven't taken one on the street yet, and two, it's two commercial motor vehicles, which I didn't do anything with those in the academy. And he's like, handle it like you did in the academy. Well, an hour and a half later, I have my FTO yelling at me to hurry up and finish, because I didn't know what I was doing. So my takeaways from that, there was more than just that. I had good experiences too, more good than bad, was that I told myself, if I ever get a chance to be an FTO, I am never going to expect that recruit to be able to connect the dots on things they haven't done, right? What's the point of being an FTO if you're just gonna let them falter in the wind? Like, you need to give them a chance to breathe and learn. And I'm never, ever, ever gonna be that way. And I'm always gonna take the time to learn about them, you know, where they went to college or in the military, their family life, just to get some background on them so I know where they're coming from, because my FTOs never did that.
So give me that 30,000 foot perspective of your time at Geneva.
I would say that it definitely started off rough. I mean, I was successful. I passed everything, mostly because of me. But then once I made that commitment, then my career started taking off. Whether it was, you know, two of the biggest things I got in the beginning was going to PTI to be a master firearms instructor. And the other one was becoming a field training officer. And I remember very vividly, we would have 2 meetings a year, mandatory with the chief, a mid-year appraisal and then your appraisal meeting. And on the mid-year appraisal, we had this thing, a sheet that you would fill out, and we always described it as what I want to be when I grow up. And we were always told, put everything on there, even if you don't have an interest now, or even if you don't think you're ready for it, they might still send you to classes to help prepare you. And so field training officer was one of the things that I wanted to do. And so I remember Chief Kidwell, who's still alive, who played a very integral role in my success. He was going over and he leaned on his desk and he goes, Dan, I want you to be an FTO, but you're not ready. And I was like, yes, sir. And he said, how you get ready is you go talk to the FTOs and get their perspective and learn about it, and then we'll think about it. So I did just that to get their perspective, because at that time, being an FTO was part of the pipeline to become a sergeant. And they were hand selected. It wasn't just like, hey, we need to fill a spot, grab someone. They were hand selected. So it was a big deal back then if Chief Kidwell selected you to be an FTO. So then all that started taking off. I was doing well. There's a huge learning curve when you become an FTO, especially if you're committed to it for the right reasons, firearms, and then things just started spinning up, and then the SWAT world, and then doing all the other, ancillary things associated with that. And, I bypassed taking promotion several times or going through the process on purpose. But during that time, I got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree, started teaching college on the side. So I was always doing stuff. And then going through the ranks on Kane County SWAT, and then going through the ranks on WMD SWAT at the same time. I'm like, I love what I do for a living. Like, this is great. And I never would have had that if I would have gone back home. It never would have been that way. Yeah, I would have been happy working with my friends, but they even said you would have never had the career that you did up there. And so looking back on it, and I told you that I had a pretty unique career because I was first in a lot of those things. And then getting into peer support and getting recruited by NICISM, that's huge. Like, I've literally sat in officers' kitchens debriefing them and helping them because they've been shot, and walking through those things with them because I've been through some things. And talking to firefighters and dispatchers and police officers that have just gone through the cement grinder. And it's very, very, very rewarding, especially when you can develop that connection that is not, well, my chief said I had to be here. Like, they learn from it and they find out that they're okay. They're okay.
So when you look back on your career, what is it that you're most proud of? What accomplishment, what assignment, what is it that when you look back, that's the first thing that pops into your head?
So, I was basically on the Union for 16 years. And I was on the team that basically, when we went Union, we were the last department of our size in Illinois that was non-union. So that caused a lot of problems. It was a big point of consternation. And people grow to realize that my role on there is that I was always fighting for them. That even when they would offer things that would be self-serving, I would say no. And to my detriment, because I could have been making more money and they could have been making way less money. And I'm like, that's not why I'm here. That's not what I'm doing. So when I think about that, some people say that's my legacy, how hard I fought for everyone and made Geneva competitive after it became uncompetitive with salaries and everything like that, and benefits and stuff like that. So that's not really the police side of it, but I worked with a guy who's very, very smart, very, very smart guy, very cultured guy. And I did not get a chance to train him, which I wish I would have, but it just didn't fall that way. He asked me, he goes, hey, what do you want your legacy to be? And it kind of threw me back. I'm like, well, that's not for me to determine. Like, I've done a lot of things that people don't realize that I've done, and that's fine because that's how this world works. I guess I would want my legacy to be that Dan Yates was a good cop and he did it well. I guess that's what I'd want to be known for, even though I did a lot of other things. I've been through a lot of things, and a lot of recognitions and accommodations and things like that. But just that I was a good cop, and I did the job well, and I did it right.
So as a patrol officer, probably made a ton of traffic stops.
Oh, yeah.
Any traffic stops that kind of stand out in your mind?
May 15th, 2004, 11:29 p.m. I was a power shift car, and so it was a Saturday night, and I would come in at 9 o'clock. So basically, I would be taking late calls for the off-going shift or early calls for the oncoming shift, or whatever needed to be done. I worked 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Right out the gate, I get an underage drinking party, which every cop under the sun does not like underage drinking parties. Go handle that, not a big deal. I get a driving complaint on the east side of town, which those are a dime a dozen. I head up north to St. Charles on 25, because that's where it was reported. Get to the border, don't see anything, turn around, but when I turn around, I get behind an super old gray Corsica. Run the license plate right away, but I was right along the river, so back then there were dead spots. But I could see that the driver didn't have a seatbelt on. Well, when I started my career, and especially when you started your career, you couldn't stop people for that. It wasn't a primary offense. But it had become a primary offense. So finally we get up to the intersection of Route 38. The response comes back, the registered owner suspended for DUI. And I'm having this debate. I've got 3 cars in the turn lane to go east on 38. His option is to continue south or go west on 38. So I'm having this debate. Do I want to get tied up on a suspended arrest? I'm down paper already, everything like that. I could stop him for the seatbelt violation. And as soon as a green arrow comes on, he cuts off the 3 cars to go east, which is on a hill at that point. So I'm like, well, I'm definitely stopping this guy now. And so we get up to the top of the hill. I light him up, do the stop. He pulls into a gas station, like you'd be pulling in to get gas, okay? That's what it looked like to me. But he pops the door. Again, looked like he was pulling in to get gas. Maybe he saw the gas station. I never try to incorporate what if into my decision-making process, but I just yell at him real quick, hey, stay there. Dispatcher's giving me the information. I haven't confirmed that's him. Go up, but as I'm walking up to the car, I noticed something different. This is where cops talk about something just doesn't seem right. He was a much older gentleman. I probably shouldn't call him a gentleman because he wasn't a gentleman, but a much older guy. I could see a tattoo on his hand, and of course I recognized military tattoos, especially the Vietnam guys, and that was not what this was. So I'm like, okay, but he had a ring on every finger. And I'm like, okay, that's odd. And it's 11:30 at night. So I tell him stay there. He complies. I get up there right away, go into, hey, let me see your driver's license, because he's going to give me some story. I don't have it on me. Says nothing, but acknowledges it without saying anything. And he's leaning forward to try and get the wallet out of his back pocket, but he couldn't get it out. He had what I call an old man wallet, so it's like this thick, right? And he's got jeans on, so he literally has to stand up to get it out. So he kind of looks at me like, hey, I can't get my wallet out. Hasn't said anything to me yet. So I don't open the door. I back up to the front of my squad car, let him get out, and he's going for his wallet, and I can't see his right hand. Only thing I can't see, and all I do is slightly lean to the left. And when I do that, I see he's got a butcher knife in his right hand. And I'm like, okay. And I'm sure my eyes got the size of silver dollars, and he runs at me. That was my first tactical error, which I diagnosed all this later on. Although they said it was a textbook shooting, there's no such thing. I turn to get around the back of my squad car. What I should have done is shoot the gap, get on the other side of his car. I didn't do that. And I'm right along the sidewalk. However, the easement to the sidewalk was higher than the sidewalk. I trip, hit the curb, land out on the roadway, Route 38. Everything at that point had been super slow motion. Now it's light speed. And in my mind, because my back is to him, I'm screaming, get up, get up, get up, get up. This guy's going to be on top of you. So as I'm getting up to turn where I last saw him, my gun was already in my hand. I have no idea why. It already was. I wasn't fully standing yet, and I turned where he was, and he's coming at me with the knife, and I fire twice, and he lands at my feet on his back. I knew as soon as he landed at my feet, which this is all super fast, this is like a 10-second period, I knew he was already dead. Like, I could just tell he was. And I knew I hit him at least once, but I didn't know if I hit him twice. And so when a person's under extreme critical stress, and I learned this through all my training, that sometimes weird thoughts or visions occur in that immediacy. And the very first thought that came into my mind, which is, again, we're at light speed, couldn't hear my shots going off, couldn't feel my shots going off, was, oh man, someone's gonna miss this guy tonight. And I was like, what are you thinking? This guy just tried to kill you. And then even crazier than that, as I'm calling out on the radio, never knew what I said because I couldn't hear. My radio traffic was really good, believe it or not. I see the fire department coming, westbound on Route 38. And I'm like, how did they know that I needed them? Well, they were going to another call. They actually saw the muzzle flash, but didn't know what it was. So the ambulance was there before they even dispatched the ambulance. So that was nice. It just makes it a lot better. And so, ironically, I had another patrol officer and a sergeant 2 blocks away from me when I made this stop. And they were on a talk-around channel to see who was going to back me up. And when they unkeyed, all they hear me doing is screaming on the radio. They think I'm in a foot pursuit. And so the patrol officer is coming up the hill, and I see him coming, and I'm literally screaming at the top of my lungs for him to stop, 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 stop. He basically slams on the brakes, goes into the gas station sideways. The sergeant, who was right behind him, jumps the curb, almost takes out a street sign. And my backup officer couldn't understand why I had someone proned on their back in the middle of the street, because that's not how we prone people out. Right? And so, boom, he runs up, gun out. He's like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. He just attacked me with a knife. And he's like, is there anybody in the car? And I'm like, I don't know. So he's like, I'm going to clear the car. Sergeant gets there. I still got the guy at gunpoint. Right? I'm not thinking at this point. Mm-hmm. And the sergeant looks up and says, Dan, you got to put your gun away and help me. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So I holster, and then as soon as I'm going down to start CPR on the guy, someone grabs me from behind. Like, to me, it felt like Hulk Hogan or someone grabbing me. Boom! Pushes me up against the squad car that almost hit me, and it's Kevin Forrest, who was he was either a battalion chief or lieutenant at that time. Great guy, I've known him my whole career, is like grabbing me all over. Or did you get hit? Did you get stabbed? Because I'm bloody from hitting the street. I'm like, no, Kevin, I don't think so. So I didn't even know who this guy was. It was a 10-second window. And to make a very long story short, to figure out why this guy did what he did, is we called in the integrity unit, state police integrity unit. They did their investigation. I actually got interviewed that night, which is a big no-no. But what they surmised is that he'd been in a really bad domestic against his wife. I believe they lived in Belvedere. She was able to barricade so he couldn't get in the bedroom, and he left. So she fled. She ended up going to DeKalb, but there was a family member that lived in Geneva. He was a bad guy. He called that family member, was in such a rage, they got scared and left because he indicated he was coming there. I stopped him about 3 blocks away from that home, but he was a murderer. He had killed people in the past, killed a person in prison, attempted murder on a neighbor. He was out on bail on a DUI, and he told his wife he's never going back to prison. And I stopped him for running a red light and no seatbelt.
Wow. It's crazy how the mind works, right? In that you're walking up and you key in on the rings and the tattoos on the hand. Wow, that's weird.
Right.
Just the odd things that, right, as quick as things happened, your mind has the opportunity to pick those things out, and right, it's just incredibly odd. So how do you feel that you were treated during that investigation of the shooting?
I was I was treated fairly. You know, I was the first person in the history of the Geneva Police Force to ever shoot someone. Ever.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of close calls, obviously, over the years. There were a couple officers back in like the early 1900s. They got killed by a burglar. But I was the first one ever. And so it was kind of like the rafters shook in the city. There was a lot of uneasiness. We got no training on officer-involved shootings, and I don't know how you really train for it, but no education on it. And so at some point, you know, I did my interview. They basically told me, don't talk to us, but I talked to them anyway. I didn't know. You know, I was like 28 then, or whatever. And during the interview process, the guys were great. I think he was a sergeant or master sergeant. He was on the team, black guy. I'd met him a couple times after. He's a super, super cool dude. And they kept hitting on the fact, like, how many times do you shoot? And I'm like, well, I shot twice. And they're like, how do you know that? And I said, because we always shoot twice unless we don't. That was a PTI thing, right? Right?
Yeah.
And so, and then they also kept hitting on how he was holding the knife. And he was holding it very weirdly. Like, it was like he was going to gore me with it. He was using both hands. And they're like, they had me show him and describe it and everything like that. Well, what I found out later, he's using part of his fingers. He needed the other hand to stabilize the knife.
Oh, okay.
I never saw that.
Yeah.
So that just led credence to what I was saying. And years later, I found out that at 6:30, by 6:30 in the morning, I was already cleared, but he had to go through everything. But one day, I was going through the department. They put me on admin duty that week. I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. You know, I had to write a report, which is actually a big no-no now too, right? It had to be reviewed by the attorney and my lieutenant, and you know, there's only people. I was actually a victim, right? You know, so victims don't write the reports. We know all that now. But they ended up doing a PowerPoint thing for city council that I did not know about. And one day I was walking by one of the conference rooms and I saw the officer-involved shooting. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, oh, you didn't know? I'm like, no, what? And they're like, we have to bring council members in like 2 at a time, so it's not a quorum. So they have background on, so if they have to make a decision if there's ever a lawsuit, whether they're gonna fight it or, I'm like, really? I'm like, I tell you, if they file a lawsuit and the city ever settles, I'm quitting. Right? Oh. You know, but it was, you know, that's the politics. That's the bureaucracy behind it. And now they gave me a copy of it, look back on it, and family never sued. This kind of a strange family was trying to figure out who I was. They withheld my name forever. The wife actually wanted to sit down and talk with me. And they came to me and said, hey, she feels really badly about everything. And she was in the paper saying she's glad I was okay. And she didn't want her husband to be remembered as a bad guy, but he was a really bad guy. And I'm like, no. What am I going to say to her? Ma'am, I'm really sorry I killed your husband. You know, I mean, no, I'm not doing that. I mean, you're crazy if you think I'm going to do that. Right? So it was just weird stuff. Stuff. And that's when I was introduced to NICISM, because I went through their processes. And then later on, they reached out to me a few years later to see if I would be interested in it. I'm like, absolutely, because that helped me so much, right?
Yeah, for sure. So was there any video, in-car video, gas station video, anything like that to help?
So we were kind of archaic back then. We didn't have any video. There was gas station video, but it was inside the gas station. We were all the way on the outside lanes of it. So it didn't, you could see the reflection of the lights on the windows, but there was no video. But there was a witness that I did not know about. And I found out later that there was a witness who saw everything.
Wow.
And described everything that I described. And he couldn't figure out what the guy was chasing me with, and then all of a sudden I fell down and got up and shot him. So he was like mortified.
Wow.
And he was just going to get a Coca-Cola. It just walked out when it was going down.
Did the offender ever speak, ever say anything that you remember?
No. So, what I've researched, over the years, I've really gotten into tactics and the tactical mind and everything like that, and what happens under critical stress. And so what happens is your brain sees all of this, right? But it gets rid of stuff, says, no, I don't need that. I don't need that. Oh, I do need him to have his gun and I need him to shoot, right? He doesn't need to hear it because the blood's going where it needs to go, everything like that. The witness said that I was screaming something at the guy. That has never, ever come back to me. And all I can say is that when I got up and turned where I last saw him, I was carrying a Glock 40 at the time. The barrel of my gun was like this big on his chest because the eyes can't focus on anything up close. And we were like two ships passing in the night, because when I did that, he had a look on his face like, oh no, stop. But we were past the point of no return. There was nothing I could do to stop my actions. There was nothing he could do to stop his actions at that point. We were beyond the point of no return. And they kept asking how far away he was. And I'm like, oh no, he was like 10 or 12 feet.
Wow.
He was 4 feet. 4 feet away. But because your depth perception gets skewed when you're under that critical stress.
So I'm going to assume that it's in some shape or form there's more or less a formal debrief, but then there's that internal debrief of, what could I have done differently?
100%.
A traffic stop's a traffic stop. The approach is going to be the approach. A guy who can't get his wallet out, we're all going to say, hey, yes, step on out, get your wallet out for me. All of that just kind of is what it is. But at the moment that you see the threat, what would you have done differently?
So I know exactly. So I became kind of, over the years, and this started way before I even got in my shooting. Like, I started going to some, I guess what I would describe as higher level trainings. And my brain is probably a dangerous place to play in, but I think about things differently than a lot of people. And I was getting tired of going to courses where they're like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And then when I would ask them why they do it that way, this is just how we do it, right? I always wanted to understand the why. Especially if I'm teaching someone, I want to give them that component. So that process had already started. And so when it came to my self-critique, we're our own worst critics, I really took a deep dive into it. But I will say this, finally, one officer got brave enough to ask me what I would have done differently, knowing what I know now. And I laughed and I said, oh, that's easy. I wouldn't have come to work that night.
Yeah, right.
Right? But no, so, I made two really bad tactical errors during that. The only reason that I came out on top is that I was just better than him, okay? My first mistake, and some people are like, oh, you shouldn't have let him out of the car. I'm like, well, you've got to, I mean, what am I going to reach in and get his wallet for him?
Yeah.
Or just try and get his information? He gave me no indicators at that point. If I would have had intelligence that he was going to attack me, because he never gave me indicators, I would do something differently. What I should have done right away is I should have, instead of turning my back, because we're all apex predators, and as an apex predator, and you probably know this from getting in a foot pursuit, you get a burst of energy when someone takes off from you, because we need to get them, right? So I gave him that energy by turning my back to him. So that was my first mistake. Simultaneously, what I should have done is I should have split the gap between my squad car and his car, because I was right there. He was just starting his advance, and make him track me around a barrier. Now, that could have led to a negotiation. I don't know. But that's not what happened. What wasn't supposed to happen is I wasn't supposed to fall down. that changed things. Once I got back into the fight, per se, once he went down on the ground, his mistake was that he stayed on line with me. If he would have done a flanking maneuver, I would have turned under stress right back to where he was, and he wouldn't have been there. And now I got to find him. As soon as I put him down, I should have moved immediately, and more so, because I was on the west side of him, I should have moved to the east side of him. So if he rolled back over to the west side, I'm not there. But then I would see traffic coming if traffic was coming, and I stayed right there. No traffic was coming. 11:29 at night on a Saturday night, no traffic in either direction, which is unheard of because we had bars and everything.
Yeah.
So those are the biggest takeaways from it. And you know, if you don't take and that's why people would say that was a textbook shooting. I'm like, no, it wasn't. That was not textbook at all. You know, and I don't think any shooting is textbook. You know, because it's all different. And what I would like to point out is that, and this is more for the viewers, is that police officers have got to get very tuned in with recognizing visual cues, right? There's a reason something has caught your attention. Don't look for reasons to dismiss it. Look for reasons to confirm it. And what I will say is that he, unless I missed it, but I was watching him closely, enough so that I looked to his side, I noticed his hands, everything like that. He never gave me an indicator he was about to attack. And I think this is why. He had done it before. He had managed those emotions before, so he knew what that buildup was like to the explosion. Plus he was drunk. We found out he was drunk, so that probably masked it too. So had he not been intoxicated, had he not been a murderer in the past, I think maybe I would have picked up on something.
So when does he launch the attack? When you lean and see the knife, or when you start retreating back?
No, right when I lean to the left and I see the tip of the blade, and then I'm sure he recognized that I recognize it, and then he just launches at me.
Got it. Is there a particular call or an incident that stands out in your memory?
Yeah, it was summertime. It was actually, I was only been on probably 3 years. We had a grocery store in town called Dominic's, and I get called there for just a telephone threat. And I get there, they basically were screening calls for a lady that worked there because she kind of had a crazy ex, who I actually knew because he used to work there. But anyway, in this day, he wanted to talk to her, and they said she wasn't there when she actually was. And then he said he would basically kill the kid that he was talking to. So he was like, I'm not scared of him. We got to do something about this because he will not leave her alone. I'm like, all right, no problem. I call the guy, he lies about it's his roommate and so forth and so on, gives me the runaround, and then an hour later he calls me back. I'm like, I'm talking to the same guy. I'm like, why are you lying to me? You know, same voice, same guy. And he is very hostile with me and not gonna cooperate, but here's the backstory. Now, I only had a low misdemeanor, and not even involving the lady that it was really directed to. I find out after talking with her that she really needed someone to listen to her. And I'm like, lady, I'm here for a telephone threat. Like, as it turns out, she had been with him for many, many, many years. They lived, I believe, out in LaSalle County for a long time. And at some point, he started sexually assaulting her daughter, who he claimed was 18, and she wanted to be with him. She ends the relationship, moves to Batavia, Illinois, gets an apartment. This guy finds this out and gets an apartment in the same complex to watch her apartment. And during this time, all the windows get bashed out in her car. He's constantly calling her, letting her know that he knows what she's doing, and he's bragging about, your daughter just wanted me, you didn't want me, everything like that. And she's beside herself. Like, she's mentally exhausted. Nobody would help her with the damage to the car because they said it was joint property, which we don't do that anymore, and everything like that. And so she asked if I will escort her home that night when she gets off work. And I'm like, absolutely. And I'm like, the whole time I'm thinking about it, I'm like, this lady needs help. Like, this is crazy. But I don't know what to do. I'm still a really new patrol officer. Take her home. He calls her right after I leave and wants to know why the F the police are there. And so she calls me right away. And I'm like, you know what? Come down to the police department right now. I just want to talk to you further. And I stayed there way after my shift and got the whole timeline of everything and find out that he actually had nude pictures of her daughter and he was showing them to people at the grocery store and everything like that. And so I get a detective involved. It's not our jurisdiction for some of this stuff. Get a detective involved. He assists with it. I'm running with it. And I'm just going to go get the warrant for the disorderly conduct. Speak to the judge behind chambers. And I'm like, Your Honor, I know this is a really low level misdemeanor, but I'm like, I think it's much bigger than what we're looking at. And it's going to be a multi-jurisdictional thing, but I don't have any answers for you on that yet. And I'm like, can I have a high bond? And he's like, for this misdemeanor? And I'm like, yeah. And the detective's with me. He's like, yeah, there's something going on with this we don't know, and we're really fearing for the safety of the person that's not affected in this case. So he gives me a $10,000 bond on a disorderly conduct misdemeanor, so I have it in hand. I start shift, call up the Batavia road dogs that I worked really close with, and we go over there. He's not there, but I know she's working because she gave me her schedule. So I'm like, hey guys, can you just sit tight? And I'm going to run over there and see if he's in the parking lot. Because it was like less than a mile away. We're like, yeah, no problem. As I'm pulling into our jurisdiction on Fabian Parkway, I see him driving past me. And I'm like, holy crap, there he is. So I do a quick U-turn, knock him down right inside Batavia. They come flying up there to help me. Hook him up on the warrant, do the search of the vehicle. He's got a loaded Glock. He has rope. He has binoculars and a backpack full of ammunition. People don't do that, right? And so I get more charges on him. He goes to jail. They spin up, I guess, further investigations in DeKalb County as well as LaSalle County. I think Batavia revisited their criminal damage to property case. I interview some people that actually confirm the photos of the daughter, who's an adult at this point, but this is when she was not an adult. I get statements, do all of that, and then between two jurisdictions, he ended up stemming from this minor disorderly conduct, he ended up getting about 27 years in prison for what he did to that girl.
Wow.
And that lady just needed someone to listen to her.
Any idea if he's still there?
If he's still in prison? His time is probably up. Over the years, I would run into the lady. She'd always give me a big hug and say that I was her hero, and I'm like, I was just doing my job. Just doing my job. But found out that her daughter got proper counseling, married a military guy on the East Coast, and has a beautiful family.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I never ever talked to the daughter. And I never involved myself with that. And it was just, so as whenever I tell that story to all the kids that I would be training, I'm like, listen, sometimes you just got to scratch the surface because you don't know what you're going to find, and I'm like, I was just dealing with, I wasn't trying to be a hero. I'm just like, this lady's got a story to tell and nobody's listening to her. And then, so I had to go to LaSalle County. The defense attorney knew I was going to get put on the stand, didn't want to put me on the stand because I had a lot of conversation with the guy inside Miranda, and he was just talking. And then he pled that, and then he had a case in DeKalb He pled that also. So I didn't have to testify at all, and I wanted to. I so wanted to testify against him because you kill him with kindness and you hang him with the words.
You know, that's awesome, because very rarely in our profession do we see the impact, or are we aware of the impact that we have on somebody's life. And I mean, that's awesome that you not only helped her, but you got to see after the fact the positive impact that you had on her life, and that her daughter went on to have a happy family. So that's
Yeah, it's a
awesome.
good story. It really is.
So have you ever gotten that feeling on a call or an incident that something just wasn't right? I mean, we talked about one incident with the traffic stop,
Right.
But have you ever had that feeling?
Yeah, so I was much longer in the tooth at this point in my career, fully enmeshed in SWAT, fully enmeshed in all the training aspects and FTO and everything like that, what they would call a veteran at this point. And so I go to a very nice home, very expensive home, and it's the wife calling on the husband, and basically their business is failing. He's an alcoholic. They got into a dispute, and she goes, "I'm only calling because I know he's heading to, his shop in Batavia. And he's intoxicated. I don't want him to hurt somebody." But when I'm getting more details on what she's telling me, he, in my mind, was telegraphing that he was going to kill himself. And she didn't pick up on that. And basically he had a little black bag. And she said, "I know there's a gun in there," because he's a big hunter. He has all of his guns and stuff at the shop. And she said that during the argument, he threw the bag on the ground and said, "It's all there. I'm done. Bye." She was in the weeds and all of it and didn't see everything. And I'm like, oh, that's a problem. And so another officer gets there, and I run out of the house, not telling her what I'm doing, and I get Batavia on the radio. I'm like, "You got to get to this shop now and try and intercept this guy. I think he's probably suicidal." And I tell the other officer, so we knew where it was. It wasn't far from our border. I'm like, "Let's just go down there." So we hit the lights and sirens, get down there. Batavia gets there and says, "Hey, he's barricading right now." And so I get there, and the sergeant knew I was a SWAT guy, which that doesn't matter. I mean, and he's like, and so they're having the fire department break down the door to get in there because he's going to kill himself. Now, we would just let him barricade in this day and age. Go ahead, barricade. Yeah. That's what you're going to do. As sad as it is, but that's not what we did then. And so we're going to go directly to him. And as we pop the door, get that door popped, he takes one look at us, and we're probably 25 feet from his office. We didn't know he had the gun. He grabs a handgun, looks right at us, and pulls a trigger right into his head. Wow. So what little bit she told me, I'm like, this is a problem. This is a big problem. I think this is what he's going to do. Didn't tell her that. And that's what he did. Instead I could have just been like, "Hey, for information, look out for this vehicle, possible drunk driver." But I'm like, based on the way she's describing it, it's more than just that.
So what's your response when something like that happens right in front of you, 20 feet from you? Like, what's going on in your head?
So, I mean, that's, we've seen countless suicides, but it doesn't happen in front of us, with all the overdoses and hangings and, popping pills to kill yourself. Those are, lack of a better description, those are kind of peaceful, right? You're not, but that guy, the look on his face was like, "You're not stopping me. You have no control." And honestly, I don't know what we would have done if we would have confronted him with the gun. Looking back on it now, being much older and wiser, I was at peace with it right away because he made a decision that I didn't want him to do, but there's nothing that's going to stop free will.
Yeah.
And it was very tragic, completely unnecessary. Maybe if I could have had a chance to talk with him a little bit, maybe we could have done something differently, but he had his mind made up. We just happened to get there too quickly.
So was there any, did the responding officers, because there was somebody else right there with you,
Yep. I had a,
you guys receive any care after that to help you
No.
process that?
no, I talked to the officer afterwards. He was up there with me, but he didn't go through the door when I went through the door because they were going to clear the rest of the building. So basically we were doing some mini CQB on it. We were going, me and the Batavia sergeant were going direct to threat. He was only a threat to himself, but at that point. But no, we didn't. I talked to him about it. I'm like, it's okay not to like it. I don't like it. We can't stop everybody. We can only try. But they're ultimately going to make that decision. And, go home and hug your wife a little tighter tonight and be grateful.
Yeah. So, we're talking about some very high-level critical incidents here. And, we talked about that self-debrief that occurs in your mind and how can we have done things different. Is there a call other than one that we've discussed that maybe you wish you had the opportunity to do it again because you're like, I know I could have done that better?
Yeah, and it's not a critical incident whatsoever. So as I was growing up, my parents always told me I was going to be successful, but my mouth was going to get me in trouble. And they weren't wrong. My mouth has overshot my butt many times over the years, has gotten me in trouble, not to the point of discipline, but some very stern conversations. I went to just a child custody dispute, which those are a dime a dozen, but this is with a really well-known attorney with whom I respected. I had been in court with him. He was pro-police. He was a super nice guy. And there was a dispute over a cell phone or something. When adults can't figure it out, then they call the police to figure it out, and we can't solve their problems. They gotta solve it themselves, right? We can only assist. And so I'm getting information outside, and I know this attorney. I have a very good rapport with him. So I'm like, this is gonna be easy. We'll figure this out right away. And so I knock on the door. He opens the door, says, come on in. And I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna say his name, but I'm like, what's going on? Why are we here? He goes, well, you're the cops. You figure it out. And that pissed me off so badly because I'm like, wait a second, I know you. And I'm like, well, thank you for that, Captain Obvious, as he's kicking me out the door. And so I'm like, wait. And I don't want to accidentally say this. I'm like, wait. You and I, listen, you're upset. I'm pissed. Let's stop being upset and pissed, and let's figure this out. And I apologize. I'm going to report to my supervisor what I said to you if you wish to file a complaint about me for being unprofessional. Wasn't my intention. I am very sorry. I said, can we just figure this out? And he knew my first name. He put his hand on his shoulder. I'm really sorry. Yeah, let's figure this out. This is what happened, and this is where we're at. And I'm like, there's that mouth thing again. Yeah. There's that mouth thing again that just blurted out. He never complained because I apologized. That was a humble side that grew in me that wasn't there early on my career. And it was a non-call.
Yeah.
It's a non-call. But you can blow up non-calls with your actions. And professional foot needs to come forward first all the time.
Well, kudos to you being able to press pause and say, oh, all right, hold on.
Yes.
Let's de-escalate this right now.
Right.
And yeah, that's awesome. What are some of your best memories when you look back on your career?
My best memories is kind of a 30,000 foot view. The hardest job, in my opinion, as a patrol officer, I can't speak to rank because I never took rank, is being a field training officer. And I've actually considered writing a whole bunch of different essays relating to being a field training officer. It's a hard job. It really is. And you gotta be 100% committed to it. And you have got to be that recruit's number one advocate. Because you know how cops like to talk when they're drinking coffee and say things about other cops and everything like that. And I have had my overall memory is that I had the opportunity and the capability to not only save some careers because they were struggling, and then they came to me, and we were able, they had to do all the work. I just helped them do the work, save some careers. I can't remember how many people I've trained over the years that then became my bosses. So some people are like, well, how do you, they're your boss now, you trained them. I'm like, that was my job, right? So that's a bigger reward for me that I helped them along that path. I've helped a lot of officers get into the positions they're in based on my recommendations and mentorship, because I was afforded that. And I would give them everything they could handle. And I would push them and push them and push them and push them and get them to grow. And that is a huge reward when you see that officer, when side by side with them 2 years later, you're on the call and that dude or dudette is doing it, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, I got this, Yates. And you're watching them handle it, and they're connecting the dots, and it's very, very rewarding. It's no different than I coach baseball like crazy, and I've had quite a bit of success with it. It's so great when you see those kids, it starts to click for them. They're there for the right reasons. They're willing to fail fast and move on. They're willing to be super patient with themselves because it's a long road, and there's so much to learn. And baseball's no different, right? When you talk about situational and body mechanics, batting mechanics, throwing mechanics, knowing your position, or anything like that. That's my greatest reward. And it was the same thing whenever I was teaching college, and then some of my students later on would become cops, and I'd show up somewhere, in SWAT, out of town. They'd be like, hey, Yates. I'm like, good job, you made it, right? That's awesome. Good for you. That's very, very, very rewarding. And it's not, that's the evolution from where I started, being very selfish and not being humble, to getting rid of that through maturity, making a lot of mistakes along the way, and then being able to help them and give them what they need, when they need it, and how they need it.
Is there someone that, and you mentioned someone early on, but is there someone that you really look to as a mentor in your career?
So, and I'm going to try not to cry. I have been completely blessed with the leaders that I've had and the mentors that I've had. I started in Champaign County Exploring Program when I was 15, and I was mentored all the way through that process. Mentored through the jail with some very, very, very good officers. And then when I got to the street, I had some wonderful sergeants. Chief Kidwell was amazing. And I've just, when I talk about the different command staff and the SWAT teams and even classes I've gone to, like Mark Spicer was very influential on me. He probably doesn't know this. He probably doesn't remember me. I took a counter sniper course with him. Mark Spicer was a sniper, or the expert they used in the DC sniping case. He's a big deal. And he would give me little snippets of, information. And one thing that he told me was that, Dan, if you outthink them, you outlive them, right? And that always stuck with me. But my number one mentor was my dad. I wish that I would have been older when he retired, because he retired when I was going into 8th grade, because I didn't have the level of appreciation for what he actually did. So he went in 1960 at age 17, retired in 88, made it all the way to Chief Master Sergeant. And we were out in South Dakota on a nuclear base, B-1 bomber base when he retired. Now, he wasn't a soldier per se, he was an administrator, but he was highly, highly respected. And, I lost him at 21. I thought I was a grown man then. I thought he was an old man then at 53. And I was wrong on both counts. I was a kid. He was a man for sure. But he did something with me with my baseball career, when I got the corrections job, and then when I was asked to be a sniper. And he'd been dead for many years. I never wanted to be a sniper, ever. And I'll get to that in a moment. But I was a good baseball player. I was little though, but I was fast. Eventually, I was one of the team captains my senior year and everything like that. I played a little bit of baseball after high school. My coach, who I think was also a retired Chief Master Sergeant, he was retired Air Force, but I think he was a chief also. He obviously knew my dad. He came to me in practice one day and said, hey, Danny, I know you want to play infield. I want you to play outfield. And I was like, absolutely not. That's where the bad kids play. I was probably a freshman in high school. And because I always played first and third. And he's like, here's why I want you to do this. Because you're fast. I need you to run down those balls. He's like, I don't care that you don't have an outfielder's arm, but I just need you to get those balls. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. He goes, well, go home and talk to your dad. So he was setting me up for failure. Well, this is what I got from my dad. He's like, son, listen, one of these days your coach or your boss is going to come to you and want you to take an assignment you don't want. Today is that day. And the answer is yes, because the team comes first. And I'm like, okay, because I'm not going to disappoint my dad. So I come back to my coach and next practice, I'm like, okay, I talked to my dad, I'm playing outfield. And he just kind of smiled. Same thing with corrections. One of these days, the boss, Sheriff Madigan's going to come to you and want you to take an assignment you don't want to do. And today is that day. And then when I became a sniper, which I didn't want to be a sniper, Commander Wolf, Dave Wolf, I admire him greatly. He's a very good person, good Christian man. Came to me mid-training one day and says, hey, Dan, we want you to become a sniper. And I was like, no. And because I was having fun, I was doing really well in entry. It's been on about 3 years. And he's talking, and I can't hear a word he's saying because there's my dad front and center. Son, listen, one of these days, your boss is coming to you and you don't say no because the team comes first. My dad was my number one mentor, and I only had him for 21 years.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit because that's such an important piece of being a cop, because you're not always going to get to do just the things that you want to do. Mm-hmm. Where do you see us at as a profession today, and the willingness of new officers to take on additional responsibilities?
Jason, I don't see it at all. And that's that generational thing. And I stayed in FTO till the day I died, even though they had dialed me back just a little bit. They were just going to use me in situations where the recruit needed a little extra. But they're not bad people by any stretch of the imagination. But they had an expectation, or have an expectation, that they were going to get whatever they want. And I think it's because of the immediacy in their generation with the internet, with the cell phones, that they're automatically just going to get what they're interested in. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. But then it did work like that because there were so many gaps and openings that had to be filled. And I can still relate to them because let's face it, police work has never changed. It's still the same. And it doesn't matter where you go. The only difference is there's more or less of it. They're still going on domestics, they're still going on bad crashes, they're still going on suicides, murders, maybe just not to the level, say, like, Chicago is, right? You're still going to those things. And it takes a long time to learn how to, understand your resources, tactics, everything like that. It takes time. And so I unfortunately watched some really good officers that they came to them, hey, we want you to take this assignment. And they said, no, I don't want to do that. And they never got what they wanted to do because they didn't understand that concept of, well, if I do this, then I'm probably going to get to do this, right? And I experienced that a lot, and they paid massive, massive, massive dividends. And I teach that to my son all the time. I'm like, I know you don't want to do this, but you got to do this if you want to do that. You know, they don't understand it. It's a different generation. Doesn't mean they're not going to be good cops, but they're just different. They're just different.
So changing gears a little bit, you ever come across anybody famous or notorious or well-known and had an interaction with them on the job?
The short answer, yes. So everybody knows who Tom Hanks is, right? If you don't know who Tom Hanks is, there's something wrong with yourself and you probably should go choke yourself. But they filmed part of Road to Perdition in Geneva. And it was a big deal. Like, we had to shut down the town and everything like that. And I can pick out the scenes in that movie, and I'm like, yeah, I know right where that is. I was right there, you know. But Tom Hanks, one day, he wouldn't walk around. He'd be driven to set and taken away. But he was always very gracious. And I was standing there at my post, I don't remember, and he was driving by. It was from me to you. And I'm trying to be professional, like, oh, Tom Hanks, you know. And he could see that. And so he had his own camera, his own Louis camera, and he put it on me, and he started waving to get me to wave to him. So I'm like, hi, Mr. Hanks. You know, because I didn't want to be like, I have a job to do, right? But that was really, really cool, you know. A movie star, you know, I mean, I can't think of, I walked the parade one time for some super big politician, Denny Hassard, I think, who's notorious now. I think it was Denny Hassard. Me and my battle buddy BK, we went on to SWAT together. I got to serve with him honorably for 10 years right beside him. He's a sergeant now. We got pulled to basically be kind of in front of the Capitol Police, and our job was just to attack. If something happened, we were to take care of the problem. So, I mean, that was kind of cool. It was kind of cool, you know. I mean, that's, you know, it's more honorable than anything because we got selected because of our training experience. And so it was pretty cool.
So you brought up SWAT a few times. Any SWAT incidents that stand out in your mind, whether with Kane County or WMD?
Oh, there's a lot. Of course, you know, when you interviewed Commander Peeler, he actually plugged my name in one of our calls. We had the Delmore hostage rescue. That was a big deal. I won't go into details on that because he already has, but then there's a side story with that. So after my son was born at that hospital, like 4 days later, and then when the nursing staff figured out who I was, I'm a hero. Ooh, and my wife's like, hey, I'm the one having the kid here, right? But that nurse, and I won't say her name, she's an unbelievable person, and she's stronger than probably anyone I've ever met mentally, what she did to save her own life and others. My wife got my daughter had already been born, so this is several years later. She got really sick, and we thought it was food poisoning. And she's like, we thought that's what it was. And, so, you know, when you go to WebMD, you think you become a doctor, and we were completely wrong. Her appendix had ruptured. We didn't know that. And she was so sick, but then she got better, like miraculously over one night. She was sick for like 3 nights. And so she made a doctor's appointment. They went and got the CT scan, and the doctor called her frantically, said, you got to get to the hospital right now. Your appendix is burst. And so I got super upset and mad because I'm like, I am supposed to take care of my family. I am their protector. How could I let my wife be so sick and not do anything about it? But of course I was listening to her, you know. And so I get the kids taken care of, have a friend on their way over, neighbors are going to watch the kids. Rush to the hospital, and I walk in, and it was in Geneva, but I'm not that guy that throws out my badge and says, hey, I'm a Geneva police officer. I'm just not that guy. And so I walk up and say, hey, my wife was admitted, her appendix burst. And so they're like, okay, hold on. And the nurse is going like, okay, yeah, I'll tell them. And I'm like, what am I about to find out? And so she's kind of smiling at the end. And so she hangs up the phone and says, hey, your wife's in room number whatever, and the nurse, said her name, is really, really mad at you. And I'm like, what? So I go back there. It's the nurse we rescued.
Wow.
Now she's taking care of my wife. And she was awesome. And she's like, your wife's going to get the gold standard care. What are you thinking? You know, I'm like, I know. So it comes full circle, right? It comes full circle. Yeah, lots of other things. The worst thing I ever went through was the riots. That was terrible. And the sad part of that, there's a lot of sad parts, but I had a student that I was breaking all the rules for because she was in a very bad domestic situation. So I would always end class about 20 minutes early because she had to have her kid with her. And I would go over basically the outline for the class, take her homework, give her some extra assignments. So she never came to class. She would have to wait till after class because I couldn't have the kid in class. Mm-hmm. So I did this an entire semester. I'm on the skirmish line downtown Aurora. We're getting hit all over the place with everything. People threaten us with bats and everything. She's directly in front of me. She can't tell it's me. I'm in a gas mask, and she is MFing me up one side, down the other.
Wow. With these criminal justice classes?
Yep.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had some other stuff. I was at Henry Pratt. Mm-hmm. I was actually at WMD Day. I didn't go in until after it was done. I was there while it was still going on.
So Pratt's a mass shooting in Aurora?
Yes, Henry Pratt. And so I had another one of my snipers there with me. I'm like, load us up in armor. We can cover two sides of the building. And they kept holding us back. And I'm listening to my guys on the radio, you know, as they're engaging this guy. Thank God none of them got hurt. And eventually got in there. But there's always something you can look back and laugh on. That's very tragic. And actually, one of the officers that got injured that day ended up being one of my criminal justice students. So we had some nice conversations outside of class. He was a really good guy. I'm parked like 300 yards away from the building we're training in. And basically the call comes out for King County SWAT to assist Aurora right away. And so there's some other county guys with me that are on the team. We're on WMD together. And we just sprint, taking off to our cars. And I get to my car and I'm like, holy F, I didn't bring a squad today. So I'm like, wow. How am I gonna get there? Right? Because they're taking off, because I can't keep up with them, right? They're already gone. So I'm like, do-do-do-do-do through Naperville, right? Do-do-do-do-do. And then as soon as I hit Aurora, I'm driving over sidewalks, going through people's yards, everything, because I knew there no Aurora cop was gonna be around. And so I'm like, but I still got there and eventually went in. We had to do a cold clear of the building or safety clear of the building, and you know, and then probably the other really, really big one was the Barricaded Gunman in South Elgin, Illinois. He was shooting at officers with a 300 Win Mag, which is a big round. I mean, that's like elk hunting, and so one of my snipers actually got in a super sweet position inside of an apartment, but there was no activity on that side of the building. But he was comfortable. I was out scouting all over the place on my own, and I get into this really, really sweet spot. It's kind of in a gully, very wooded, swampy, but it kind of opens up on the end, and it's actually going to be looking right where he had been shooting from. And I get there. I only took my rifle and tripod with me. I left all my other equipment behind. And I set it up, and I have my binoculars. I'm like, I can see his door, and I can see a gun on the ground. But at this point, it's like, I don't know, 2:30 in the morning, July 4th. that sun's gonna start coming up at 4:30 and I'm gonna be backlit. And I'm like, he sees that spot every day. And I'm like, I can get him if he doesn't see me, but as soon as they're light, I'm gonna take it in the face because he can look out windows. So I quit that because I'm like, it's great for this moment, but this moment's not gonna last long. So I left and I was scouting around, found another really good spot, and then I was gonna get into that spot, and there's no way he's gonna see me, and I was just gonna ambush him. But negotiations came on the radio, said, hey, he's gonna come out the front door. And I'm like, okay, well, he hasn't been on that side of the room, but no problem. I know there's an armor team over there, and one of my snipers is over there in a very good spot. And I'm like, cool. So I'm going back to get my equipment to get set up where I want to set up just in case. And all of a sudden I hear a boom and then a crack. And I was a hunter my whole life. I'm like, that was a shotgun blast followed up with a rifle round immediately. He basically fired off a round at the armor team, ricocheted off the armor, hit the shield, but a couple of my guys got peppered a little bit in the arm. They're okay. It was bird shot, thank goodness. But my sniper took him out with a 5.56 almost instantly.
Distance?
43 yards? He was elevated though.
Okay.
With a 5.56.
Wow.
One shot, took him out. I'm still proud of him. Not because he took a person's life, because that's not a badge of honor. Like, it's never been a badge of honor for me.
Yeah.
But that he was able to do it.
And so quickly.
Yeah. And
wow.
so he struggled with it a little bit. I talked to him. We got him the resources he needed. You know, but whenever I would train new snipers, I would always tell them, I'm like, you know, absent you being ambushed on something, you're just protecting people. You're going to see all of it. You're technically not in harm's way, and you got to ask yourself if you're going to be able to do that. I'm like, I don't know that I have the answer to that. Yeah, I've been in a shooting, but I had to because it was in self-defense. You're in the defense of others, and you're going to see what takes place when you fire that round.
Anybody behind the armor fire?
Didn't have a chance.
Didn't have a chance.
They were actually too far away.
Okay. Wow.
It sounds like he did a hip shot.
Okay.
I don't know all the details. I didn't care to know all the details. But he was kind of obscured by a bush, I think. You know, and my battle buddy was the guy that was running the shield, and he took the biggest blast. Nothing critical, nothing major. Didn't have to have surgery or anything.
So you've talked about a lot of incidents through your career that I'm sure you couldn't help but bring home with you at times. What kind of impact do you think the job has had on your family?
So my kids, not so much because they're still so young. If I got called out or something and they got up in the morning, they'd ask where Daddy was, and my wife would just say, "Hey, he got called out last night." But it definitely took a toll on my wife. She was 4 days away from giving birth to my son during Delnor. Friends found out what was going on before she found out, and friends would always come over. We kind of had a system whenever I got called out that I would let her know what was going on, where I was going, and then it was, let me know when you and the boys are okay. So she went through all of those nights, because we had a lot of search warrants, and there was other things. But the absolute hardest on her was the riots. Because there was about a 3 or 4 hour window where there was no communication. All the wives, girlfriends, fiancés, or whatever had their own group me chat so they could calm each other, I guess, if something really bad was happening. And it was dead silent for a long time for them. And then, because that was a Sunday night, because I got spun up early in the afternoon that day. And so I finally got a hold of her maybe around midnight after we basically pushed everyone out of downtown, a bunch of SWAT teams. and mobile field force units. It was a big collective effort, and they destroyed that downtown.
And we're talking May, June of 2020? You're talking
Yep.
that time frame?
Yep. And so I get home about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm completely spent. I walk in the front door. Her friends, once I was secure and the team was secure, and I said, we're all okay. I said, we're a little beat up, but we're all okay. Her friends went home then, and she was waiting on the couch. So I walk in the door, she hands me a beer. So I'm like, I need it. And so I would always talk to her a little bit. She didn't need all the details. You know, she never asked for all the details, just enough to understand. And then went to bed. And Monday and Tuesday at that time were my days off. So I'm like, this is great. It's beautiful out. I'm just going to relax. And about 9 o'clock in the morning or so, 10 o'clock in the morning, my phone goes off. And she goes, what is it? I said, we're getting spun up for Naperville. And she's like, and then she just starts bawling. Because we just had my daughter in April. And she's like, I know you need to be with your guys. I know it. It's going to kill you if you don't go, but you have a family, you have a baby at home. And I'm listening to her. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I can't ask you to do that. I look at my phone. Unavailable. I said, I will stay at home. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Because I've been through a lot of things with those guys.
Yeah.
But family comes first.
Yeah. And it takes a long time to realize that. And
does.
Sometimes guys never realize it.
Right. So if my wife ever sees this, I love you very much. You're welcome.
So when you look back on your career, any regrets?
None whatsoever. You know, I think that when you come in, is pie in the sky. You have all these aspirations. You know, you think about, well, maybe I should go to some massive department where it's running and gunning 24/7. And I have friends that did that, and they hate life. Geneva was a place to grow that I didn't know was a place to grow. And honestly, because of the pace of Geneva, I mean, we still have calls. We still have bad calls. You know, we're not exempt. We were not exempt at all. But I would talk to my buddies that were all over. I had them all the way out on the West Coast. And like, they're so busy, they don't learn aspects of the job of how to get a subpoena, how to get a warrant, actually do an investigation, because they're first responders, and first responders only, they do a report and it's gone. Mm-hmm. We followed up. We worked cases. We would help the detectives with things, you know, and whatnot. So I got kind of a full circle of being really well-rounded. And, you know, I'm really grateful at the end of the day that I worked for a department that was very family-oriented, that would do what they could to make sure you got the time off you needed. Again, no place is perfect. I've been to a lot of imperfect places, more so than Geneva. But, you know, towards the end of my career, my kids and wife would show up, run around in the police department. They'd want to go upstairs and see the chief and my DC. And so everybody kind of knows everybody's kids' names. And we have a whole mural of everybody's dog.
That's awesome.
You know, I mean, so I'm grateful for that, because it's not, you know, it's not sterile, right? You know, I wouldn't, you know, Geneva's not perfect, but it was perfectly good.
So at some point, there's this decision to retire. How does that come about?
Because I love my wife so much. I turned 50 in January, and I had been able to purchase my Champaign County time back. So this year, August 29th, I was going to hit 29 years in the pension, just shy of 27 at Geneva. And we got married out in the Galena area, and she wanted to go out there for my birthday. It was very, very cold, so we couldn't get the kids out and do as much as we wanted. We did enough, and so we spent a lot of time, just family time together. And it was in the evening, one of the nights we were there. I think we were there 3 nights. And she basically puts a calendar in front of me and says, You need to pick a day. And at that time, I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
I was already off of SWAT, really dialed back, and a lot of the other things I was doing, more of like kind of consulting, that's a good idea, maybe do this,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. And so I'm like, well, I have to make it to August 29th. But then that was Labor Day weekend. So I'm not going to retire on Labor Day weekend. So I said, all right, I'll retire the following Friday, September 5th. Kind of let the powers that be know that that's what I was deciding on, but I hadn't put in my letter of intent because I still wasn't sure. And then I think in April I did, so they could hire my replacement. And I did that. And then where the way life works is I wasn't ready then, but we had a lot of stuff to go through with her mother's estate. And there's a lot of other things associated with that, and we had to take care of the house and get that ready. And it was just the two of us. We had some help, but not a lot of help. And then started coaching baseball in the spring, and I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready. Because I don't want to get called away when I'm coaching baseball, because I was taking on head coaching stuff. And I'm like, I'm ready.
So let me ask you this. It hasn't been that long, so I'm going to change the question a little bit. What do you think you're going to miss the most about the job?
So I'm still I still hear from officers that I worked with. Actually, I'm still helping an officer with his career a little bit because he wants to get into the NICISM stuff. I'm going to miss, and I do now, I miss the complex calls, the problem solving. I was an officer in charge for years, so a lot of times I was filling in as a sergeant. I definitely am going to miss that. I like to solve problems and try to bring order from chaos. I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss the bantering in the police department, the roll calls, Day shift was kind of a unique animal because every time an officer was having a birthday, we would have a potluck, and or someone in the PD was having a birthday that worked those hours, we'd always have a potluck, or we'd have a chili cook-off, or I'm gonna miss that. The rest of it, the taking 3 traffic crashes a day, and you got 2 people mad at each other, and they don't really understand what it is, and this guy flipped me off, or this guy doesn't belong in the neighborhood, go out and violate everybody else's rights but not my own. I'm not going to miss any of that at all. Not going to miss the uniform. I thought I would miss SWAT way more than I did, but then on those super hot days, on those super cold days, I don't miss that at all, right? And I kind of like being dad full time. It's almost like my wife and I are dating again. She hasn't got an order of protection yet. She hasn't picked me out. But we're working on a lot of projects and we're doing stuff together. It's funny as this sounds, I had a dentist appointment, just a checkup this past week. And I didn't have to take off work to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't have to burn any time to go do it, to inconvenience everything and inconvenience work. And it was my time to take, but it's a dentist appointment. Mm-hmm. But you got to do it. So yeah, I'm going to do something, and you're going to laugh when I tell you what I think I'm going to do. Because I think after we get through the holidays, I think I'm going to become a substitute teacher.
It's not uncommon for cops to roll into that, I'm telling you. I know many retired guys that substitute teach. But you're back to getting that last minute call. Yeah. You're right back to that.
Right. But, and I would do it at my kids' school till they got to middle school or whatever. Yeah. But, you kind of make your own schedule, and, the friends of ours are like, that's going to be complete chaos. I'm like, I lived in chaos. I thrived in chaos. Like, you know? And I think that's what I'm going to do. I haven't decided. We got a lot of
Yeah.
things we're working on, but you know, I have the education. I've gotten tons of job offers, and I'm like, I don't want to tie myself to 40 hours a week. I mean, there's a reason I saved and invested all these years. I have worked for the pension. I'm like, I'm just going to enjoy it for a minute. I'll probably do something,
Yeah.
right? I might even go back to teaching college again. I don't know.
Any words of advice for anyone out there that might be watching?
Yeah. So, I mean, the best teachers I ever had were the recruits that I was training. And I'll tell you, the best recruits I ever trained were always military guys and, you know, higher level athletes, like tier 1 athletes, collegiate athletes. And there's a lot of those in law enforcement. And they already understood it. But the ones that don't have that background is when in order to get hired, you've had a lot of successes, right? You've tested, you've passed everything, you went to the academy, you passed all of that. So you're riding high. There's a lot of success there. But what they learn to forget is that there's no minor leagues in law enforcement. The day you step into that squad car, you're in the major leagues and nobody cares except for you and your FTO. The world doesn't care. And so there's a lot to learn. And you've got to be patient with yourself, right? I mentioned that before. Patience is key because there's so much to learn in a short amount of time for you just to be able to go out and handle basic calls for service. And the second thing is to prevent the cascading effect of failure is you got to learn to fail fast. And what I mean by that is when a mistake is made, we learn from it, we're done with it, we're moving on from it because we can't hold on to that. Because if we're holding on to that, that's going to carry over into the next call and we can't have that cascading effect. So we're done with it, time to move on. So patience and learning to fail fast is very key for new officers. I don't see that so much with the military guys or the athletes because they know what it's like to be on a team. Win as a team, fail as a team, individual efforts, everything like that. For the kids coming right out of college, had a lot of success, but that doesn't necessarily translate to success on the street. And two components are patience and failing fast.
Dan, thanks for that advice. And I want to thank you for sitting down and sharing your journey with the badge.
Well, I appreciate it. It was a journey.